Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and check this out from link to yesterday's congressional hearing of the U.S. SEC Chairman Gary Gensler spotlight the regulatory uncertainty for crypto and signals a positive development on the horizon for Ripple as Congress pressures Gary to reconsider the agency's approach to regulation by enforcement. I don't think Gary's reconsidering anything, but I do think that there's a lot of pressure probably in D.C. to either get rid of him or do something, you know what I mean? Now, Digital Perspectives, Brad comes and put this out that Ray Fuentes is going to be his MC at the his XRP Las Vegas event, and then he added this to his XRP Las Vegas page. He's now got it, if you weren't able to get a ticket because they are sold out, he's now got web tickets so that you can go and you can watch it live on the day of. It's like an Eventbrite deal. He's going to be doing a live web stream. And if you want to find out where his website is, it is xrp-lasvegas.com. And again, I'm not involved in putting that thing on in any way, but that doesn't mean I don't want it to be successful for him. So that's the deal. Now check this out. U.S. is on the verge of a devastating national bankruptcy. And then there was this. Look at this. Gap between 2 and 10-year treasury yields is the most inverted, the most negative since the early 80s. And then Caitlin Long, who is a Bitcoin maxi, says this. Something serious is going on in the U.S. money markets today. What is breaking? That's a killer question. What is breaking? Now, this is one thing that blew my mind when I heard that when those banks went down, Signature or whatever, Signature and Silicon Valley Bank, they were talking about, I can't remember who said it, but they were talking about how people were taking their money and and most of the money was going into money markets. And I remember having a flashback because a lot of you may not remember, back during the financial crisis of 2008, that was the money markets were as risky or riskier than anything. And so that's the last place, as I recall, where you'd want to put money. So what I'm doing is making sure that I've got it in bank accounts and I don't go over the 250K limit that's insured, because that's where the bail-ins kick out in, is my understanding. But look at this. Something serious is going on in the USA money markets today. What's breaking? People really want to put their heads in the sand about this, but this really is 2008 stuff here. Another huge downdraft. That's all money markets are, is US 1 month short-term treasuries. Isn't that what it is? Scary stuff. Check this out. There's two people that are like chart people or people that analyze crypto that are not. I like it when we see these people that are not involved in XRP and aren't into XRP, and they say things like this. Check this one out. Pay attention to the charts. XRP is on the verge of something big. After weekly close, I'll have better confirmation. Stop listening to irrelevant news that does nothing but wreck people, and pay attention to the TA retweet like for the XRP chart after weekly close. And then look at this one. It's from this Tree Alpha person. This person's got like 150 something thousand followers. The best possible news you could hope for right now as a crypto trader is positive resolution of the Ripple case. If we get a headline that XRP, its current form, is not a security, we'll likely be sending it and the rest to the top 300 to Valhalla. That's like eGreg Crypto's term. And then this person says, why exactly? It's hard to believe somebody doesn't get that. The SEC has been unhinged, trying to brand everything in crypto as a security that they need to regulate. A clear win against them would hinder any future cases that they may have against other alts crypto companies. And that is the fact, Jack. Now, listen to this guy. This is from Stansberry Research, and this guy's the silver guru, David Morgan. Listen to what he says. Smart guy.
The UK uses Ripple for transactions, not in all of them, but in many of them. And, you know, I don't mind controversy, really. I think Ripple is definitely here to stay. And on the UK transaction, that's using Ripple, not XRP, just for clarification. But, yeah, I actually made the statement, and I made it somewhat off the cuff, but there's thought behind it. I try to be, you know, thoughtful in everything I say. But I said if the banks got in a hurry and they didn't have their project completed, which it looks like they've accelerated or they're there or close to it, they could use Ripple that's already, you know, in place, very fast, very efficient, and very accurate accounting, to use that system as required to get this thing started if they, you know, needed it immediately.
Okay. And then we've got this XRP now trading in Iraq. Shout out to Iraq. We know XRP is huge in Japan. Is XRP huge in Iraq, or going to be? Then yesterday we saw the Coinbase guys in the UK, and this is probably a pretty well-timed thing. They show themselves in the UK against the backdrop of US regulators trying to crack down on USA crypto. Then they go to DC, almost as if to say, look, we're about to head out of here, folks. You better get this Gary Gensler in check. I like the play there by Coinbase. Now, this guy asks, and Brian Armstrong says it's a great question. This is a great question. He says, how is it even legal for the government to approve Coinbase to go public, then come back years later and say they were operating illegally? Why was I allowed to buy stock then? It's not like they changed how they operated since they were approved. How can I invest in a public markets when this is a possibility? How do I know some regulator isn't going to decide AutoZone is operating an unregulated security exchange? And he makes a very valid point. So you got the SEC that's approving companies to go public, and then they're saying years later, hey, you company, you were doing something illegally all of that time, and we're going to come after you. Well, where's the SEC's responsibility? Where is any regulator's responsibility? And right now we live in a world where a Gary Gensler can throw his hands up and say, oh, well, Jay Clayton's the one that did that. Well, no, that's not acceptable. If you're going to, if an agency is going to do an action and let someone go public, they shouldn't be allowed to later come back and say, oh, you were doing something illegal during that time, so now we're going to come after you for that. No, there should be a freaking law where they can't do that. But these guys are lawless, so right now it doesn't matter. Wheezy makes a good point here. Read this carefully. This is the reason all Bitcoin maxis like Max Kaiser and Saylor won't address the DHS for Satoshi's meetup. This was from the Coinbase documentation when they went public, as I recall. The identification of Satoshi Nakamoto, the pseudonymous person or persons who developed Bitcoin, or the transfer of Satoshi's Bitcoins, these were like things that could hurt their business. Okay. Now, this is the same reason probably that nobody wants to know who the disguised whales in the Ethereum ICO are, is because of how that might hurt Ethereum and all those investors. Now, this Brian Costello has been on top of this, and when we were uncovering ETHgate, we found this stuff left and right. All roads kept leading to China. Look at what he says here. First of all, John Deaton says, Gary Gensler is an agent for a select few in this country. I look forward to the day he is investigated. Brian Costello, who has been on this China thing for a long time, says, Gary Gensler, you believe focused SEC enforcement on crypto and concealing, not pursuing Chinese executives' crimes in U.S. capital markets is the best way to maintain U.S. dollar position. And then he also says this by John Deaton, has Senator Warren Elizabeth Warren even said the word China since she ran for president? No. Her SEC proxy is protecting China, and so was Jay Clayton. Remember, Jay Clayton is never questioned by CNBC. Jay Clayton was hired by them instead. Senate Banking Committee could investigate Clayton today. Why is the SEC protecting China? Protecting China at the SEC is the only place Dems and GOP align. Now, speaking of ETHgate, oh, how things have changed since ETHgate. Listen to Mike Novogratz. Now, all these people that were involved, investors in Ethereum and Bitcoin, and they were behind the scenes, folks. Remember what Lowell Ness from Perkins Coie said when he was describing what they wanted to do. He said that they wanted to get Bitcoin and Ethereum out from under securities laws. And all these people behind the scenes were meeting with Bill Hinman. We know it as ETHgate, and all the people that were on the Freedom of Information Act request that showed that there were communications between Hinman and several people. Many of the people on that list, one of them included this guy, you know him. Watch how his tune has changed.
You know, it's been 5 years, 6 years, 7 years since some of these tokens have been going, and the SEC has been watching them trade. And so it feels quite disingenuous for them to come now and say, oh, by the way, you should have known 6, 7 years ago. We could have told you what we decided not to tell you 6, 7 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago, right? Like, the SEC is in a really weird place here because, again, this is not something that showed up 3 months ago, right? And so, I think one of the crypto hopes in the U.S. is that the judiciary is less political than the SEC and the Biden administration.
Did he just say that he's hoping that Ripple wins this case? Because there's nobody on the front lines of the judiciary more than Ripple is right now. Is Mike Novogratz changing his tune?
And, you know, we'll be more fair in how they determine right and wrong. The amount of egg that the Biden administration, and listen, I'm a lifelong Democrat, a supporter of democratic politics, of progressive politics, quite frankly. So I'm in this awkward place that, you know, my team is behaving in a way that I don't feel is rational or fair. Sam was the biggest donor in the midterms to tons of Democrats. Sam was the favorite child at both the CFTC and the SEC, right? I haven't had one meeting with Gary Gensler at the SEC, and Gary is an ex-partner of mine from Goldman Sachs and a guy that I'm friendly with and that I spoke to right before he took the job and taught one of his classes when he taught at MIT, right? So Sam had this privy position, and then he turns out to be the biggest fraud, and I think they just have so much egg on their face that they're overcorrecting. But the administration, there's some reason Elizabeth Warren really doesn't like crypto, and Gary's very close to Elizabeth. They're very influential in Biden, you know, economic policies. And so you put it together, and it's a really bad environment for crypto. I think it's a terrible decision from their perspective. There are 50 million Americans that care a lot about crypto. Some religiously care about it. Some just like it. They're voters. And so, you know, pre-Sam, there was a bipartisan movement happening. I was in D.C. and we hosted the Black Blockchain Alliance or caucus. And you know, from Cory Booker to Senator Gillibrand to you name them, there were plenty of people, Senator Haggerty, that were very pro-crypto, that were working on bills to get some rules around this thing. And post-Sam, it just became toxic for Democrats.
So because Sam Bankman-Fried committed a fraud, and because he was very close with Democrats by pure coincidence, right? Because he committed a fraud, that's an indictment of all of crypto, even the parts that are not a fraud. That's a problem with a political party, not a problem with crypto. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and tell your friends and family that, oh, how things have changed after ETHgate.